when your like heart is in a brand and you're like, this is the only brand I love it, I'll go out of my way for it. That's great. And if that brand leaves,
Yep.
like all of a sudden you're like, well, I mean, actually it was pretty convenient that it's really close to my house. It is pretty convenient actually that it's on my way to work and it's on the way to picking up the kids. All of a sudden convenience takes over and you're like, yeah, you know what, this place is pretty good.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Coffee Experts Club, here we are. And if you want coffee, this is where the experts hang out. How's the day, man? How are things?
Good. I kind of forgot it was Tuesday actually. And it started snowing earlier. I was like, oh, that time of the year again, huh?
Tri-Cities bringing the snow.
It's a weird time.
No snow in Southern Oregon, brother, but it has been freaking cold. They got like low of like 18 or something crazy.
Oh God. Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah. Well, don't say it too loud because Travis and Savannah will really pelt us because Travis posted yesterday -20 or something like that in Wyoming. So,
and they have what, like 3 feet of snow all the time until like June.
Cleared off the driveway, 3 feet of snow. Cleared off the driveway, 3 feet of snow.
Oh, I couldn't do it.
So a few years back, when Jeremiah Johnson Brewing, we're in the middle of a contract project with them, you know, just great guys. Jeremiah Johnson, just such a good dude. And they're brewing coming out of Montana, a great beer. But, you know, we were looking at grain, a very, very similar conversation, you know, of like, you know, we could get grains cheaper if we source it from this place, but it'll change the flavor profile. But, you know, and I felt like Jeremiah had a really interesting take on it. And he said, listen, here's the deal is we've changed stuff before and you don't want to change stuff all the time. But the reality is that human palate changes so frequently that people forget what they liked about what the drink tasted like before. And this becomes the new. So you hear some negativity about it. You know what I mean? We experienced that even when we substituted what Roasters created as Revel, their proprietary energy drink in place of Red Bull. You know, like Wes, the owner, Wes Hayden, was so nervous about numbers and what numbers were going to look like. What if we lose Red Bull, and even super anxious about it as we rolled it out and then had some panic moments. But you and I had to bring back metrics of, hey, listen, sure, there was a slight dip at the beginning, but we've actually grown by 10% 1 month out than any numbers we ever had with Red Bull before. And the best part about that is it's 5 times cheaper than what we were paying for Red Bull. So not only have we grown the traffic count, but we've dropped our pricing. So I think people's palates change and people's remembrance and what they think they loved can change over time, which is a crazy thing about people.
Yeah. And even just anecdotally, like I drive by the busiest shop for roasters all the time over here on G Way. And I mean, it's still as BlackRock, it's still got cars lined out to the street, you know, every day. People are still coming in because they forget. And then all of a sudden convenience takes over. Like when your like heart like is in a brand and you're like, this is the only brand I love it, I'll go out of my way for it. That's great. And if that brand leaves, like all of a sudden you're like, well, I mean, actually it was pretty convenient that it's really close to my house. It is pretty convenient actually that it's on my way to work and it's on the way to picking up the kids. All of a sudden convenience takes over and you're like, hey, you know what, this place is pretty good. I'm going to start going back again.
Convenience, man, it's the king. I remember when COVID first shut us down at that very location, like there at G-Way, and Starbucks was taking forever. You remember that? Like taking forever to rally through it, get back open. I remember you and Wes pushing so hard on keep the doors open, whatever it takes, like keep us, because we can right now take a power play on anybody that was going 2 blocks up the street to Starbucks right now because coffee is convenient when it's only 2 more blocks away. And then the hope is you make them sticky and then they come back to you from there. They never even go back and migrate back to whatever they knew, because I think obviously stacking excellent coffee up against a Starbucks equivalent, like once people get that taste, they're not going to probably go back to what they experienced at Starbucks. A lot of times it's just a recognition on a corner when they were driving by. They didn't know if they wanted to try the new local hometown place, but then when favorite place shuts down and they start going to this, it just becomes familiarity, right? Convenience. And I think you're totally right. Like obviously all have hometown brands that were like, I would never eat any place else. And then they go and eat someplace else up the street because you got to meet the convenience.
Especially when it comes to the coffee industry. Like, I think that's probably a good rule of thumb for most new coffee owners to realize is that convenience is always the default. Like,
Yep.
you can always build up from there, but you're always going to default at convenience. If everything else is the same, which is
Yep.
more convenient? If I am opening a location across from Starbucks or something, if our products are the same, if our service is the same, if everything's the same, everything defaults to convenience. So if Starbucks is slammed and they have 10 cars in the drive thru and I have one, I become more convenient and all of a sudden, boom, I'm there. And that's when you want to meet the customers with extra service, an
Yep.
even better product. But it all comes down to convenience. So if you're not convenient, start there, make your locations convenient, and then
Yep.
work up the service, the product, everything else, and start beating out your competitors.
Which I know we're talking to all different kinds of people that are watching and thinking about coffee or have coffee businesses or growing coffee businesses. I feel like all different kinds of people tune in for coffee experts, but I will say it does all origin back to us. But I think it's interesting that you brought all the way back there of new locations. Like think through to yourself, how easy is it to get in and out of here? Like don't push yourself in some place that's not convenient to get in and out of. Because even if you have the best location, if it's a pain in the ass to get in and out of it, people will choose not to go there, you know? So like be thinking about ingress, egress, and then visibility, and then product competitiveness, like how competitive are my prices? Because I do think price still moves people, and all those different things are things most people like they just I think sometimes we as people can fall in love with our brand so much, we forget that we're consumers at the core, and bottom line is no matter how fancy, no matter all the things that you do, no matter all the ways that you're trying to be so unique and different, it really does come down to how fast can I get my cup of coffee, right? Working on your car times. How cheap am I going to get my cup of coffee? And how visible is it going to be to remind people that you have fast and cheap coffee? I mean, like how do you make it in, and then stack all your differentials. Yeah. I mean, like stack all those things. But if you don't start with that at the base, like if you're way out of line price wise and you're convenient, well, you're gonna lose people. Yeah. I
Mm.
mean, like just thinking through what are the things that make people stick with a brand. Interesting for sure.
To BlackRock's credit, that's what they noticed really well was like, holy cow, they have a prime locations all across the Tri-Cities. I mean, roasters, we did and Wes did a great job of finding those locations that were just like the primo spot. I mean, that are the Vancouver and 27th location in Kennewick.
Yeah.
Well, there's literally it's a tiny parcel of land that's zoned for commercial.
Yeah.
In the middle of like 600 housetops, like
Like,
nobody
isn't it like a
else.
roundabout? Isn't it like right there on the
Yeah,
round?
on a roundabout, like
Yeah.
it's just a sneak in, sneak out, super easy. No other businesses around. The closest other coffee shop is, a mile down the street by a grocery store. So you literally just go, beep, and all of a sudden you've just captured an entire, 3 or 4 neighborhoods. And BlackRock, smartly seeing that is like, holy cow, these are amazing locations. All we have to do is come in. The convenience is already there. Everybody always knows this is where I can get coffee. And we just have to meet the baseline expectations of what these customers are looking for.
Yeah.
And they can be productive. Of course, they take the hit because the customers leave because it's not a roasters anymore, but those customers come back and they know that. So I think BlackRock, they're smart in what they're doing and they seem to be pretty successful still because of it.
Yeah. I think obviously, this, there are difficulties within chains. We consult for indies and we consult with franchises, like we do it all. But I will say that there are complications that come with a bigger entity. I think we love the indies because of how agile they are. How easy they are to consider a change. With a bigger entity, it's a different deal. As they came in, they did bring different things with them. It's a different business. So, they moved away from frat mix into powder, like the standard big train that roasters we had helped develop for them, proprietary frat mix, that was really knocking down their costs, and it was a powder base though. And BlackRock's like, yeah, we don't use powder base. We use like a malt, like a ice cream base more for our fraps. You know what I mean? So obviously that went away. BlackRock had their own energy drink, so what we had created with the Revel didn't translate because they had, their fuel, so I think that all those things come with a different taste and texture, that's going to be the difference. And I think that for some people, that there is some of that like ingrained pride in this hometown team. It's not just like your locations or, the owner or you're proud of what you're serving. It's like, no, even just the that thinks something so similar as taste, like energy
Mhm.
drinks taste different, and perhaps tastes different depending on what you're using to mix them. And so much new, so much change. Not everybody can last that. But to Steven's credit, I feel like he's been one of the ones that's like, listen, it's about serving people. I know that was Wes's big mantra all the way through and Wes would come down hard on us all the time of don't forget why you're here. Don't forget why we all have jobs. Like it's for the
Mhm.
people, serving the people. And I think that for Steven, he really is an old guard when it comes to that. Really, it comes down to how are we serving people, how are we raising up leaders. And man, I really have a lot of respect for him because of that. I think he's such a good quality dude.
Yeah, I mean, even in our conversations outside of coffee experts, he's got a real love for the employees, and that was something even I struggled with when I left. I was like,
You're
man,
like, I don't love nobody. I hate everybody.
no, but there's like a sense of responsibility to all the employees, that I had interviewed and trained and hired, and it's tough to be like, thanks, guys, see you later,
Like
and
your
just
babies, like it's all
yeah,
these babies that you grew little
exactly.
baristas all the way up. And like, I mean, like there are people there that were regional managers that you had brought in at the base level.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of that is a reason why too that obviously, I mean, Steve's a great asset to BlackRock. There's no doubt there. But I think there is a lot of that sort of responsibility and pride that he feels for all of those baristas that have come in. And it's a big weight to carry to think, that part of, this region all came up under Steve. And I'm sure they all rely on him for running their region well.
Yeah.
It's hard to just be like, I'm gonna walk away now. Like that's some people do, and some people are able to do that easily, myself included. And some people are like, you know what? No, I'm gonna stick around and I'm gonna sort of usher these people through into a new company, sort of take them by the hand into the new company to help foster that. So I think he's done a great job doing that. So I mean, kudos to him for it.
And he told us on the show, like it wasn't like Roasters wasn't his first rodeo. You know what I mean? Like he had done this once before, with Espresso World or whatever it was before
Mhm.
Roasters had taken over those locations. And then from Espresso World to Roasters, from Roasters into BlackRock. In fact, he had bounced out and worked at another coffee shop, like Seattle area. Sounded like he ended up coming back. But
Yep.
I think a guy who's been through a lot of different systems, I would think some of the struggle with that would be even metrically how you're being measured. Like you come out of a culture where, we had helped them roll out EOS L10s, you know what I mean? Like have a consistent meeting structure every single week.
Sorry, guys.
Uh,
I'm on Belize time down here.
yeah, it's Belize time. 17 minutes later, brother, you better Belize it. Anyway, like coming out of a system where Steven had all these metrics that he was being measured on, and then you roll in a new company that has a whole different way how they look at things, and a whole different set of things that they're evaluating on. Like a lot of people that can be tough, that they're not able to adapt. I
Yep.
just think super big kudos to Steven for being able to be an adaptable person who says, hey, listen, tell me what the new playing field is and I'll meet it. I think I was always really impressed with that about Steven, how flexible he was. The guy's just so freaking funny, like just so fun to be around, how enjoyable he is and just how he rolls with punches. And I think that that's really helped him. And man, I hope and I pray and I believe that BlackRock is grateful for Steven being there, because I think if you don't have that continuity, you can bring in other people from other markets. But if you want to keep going without missing a beat,
Mhm.
you better have somebody that can keep the continuity, keep the people holding.
Well, yeah, I mean, he even mentioned it too. Like even during the whole changeover, part of what like helped that change not be as drastic as it was because all the same baristas were there. Some
Yeah.
customers were like, "Hey, this is a different company, but at least I know, Jimmy, who's been here all the time. And at least I have some sort of familiarity with who's in the coffee shop. If Steven drops off during that transition, then you probably lose a lot more employees than
Yep.
than would have. And that makes that transition even harder because now those shops don't have all the same familiar employees the customer is used to. Now the company has to come in and rehire and train all new locations worth of employees. Like if you can keep some of those key players in place during a transition, that helps keep the managers in place, the assistant managers in place, the baristas in place, because they all have that sort of they feel like there's a piece of concrete that they know. They know that Steven's a regional. They know that if there's changes coming, he's going to help them through it. But if he's gone, there's no old guard left whatsoever. That causes a lot of chaos inside a transition, and it's tough for a company to do that.
Allowing the transition of taking someone over, but like who's making your drinks? And even if they're new drinks, like having somebody that knows at least the customer base. Like let's say, like if you change it all, right? You're changing your drinks, your menu, and you're changing the people that know the customer base. We all know majority of people come into coffee shops and frequent coffee shops and buy more from coffee shops because they love the exchange. They love the exchange at the bar. They love the exchange at the window. And if you lose people that are good at that, I mean, we experience that with very successful stores, even to this day, as Drew and I work with clients like Human Bean Reno, as they see turnover happen there, like you watch sales not do as well because of turnover, because people had familiarity with, and they were willing to buy more from people they knew. And so like turnover is tough anywhere you are, but especially in a transition. So I think Steven's value in being able to just hold it, for the sake of people being a familiar face and being able to manage that team so that when you acquire a store, you don't just see the thing just plummet because your customer base drops. And obviously this show isn't necessarily for coffee consumers. It's for people who are running businesses, and I think that for any of us running something, especially like in a business like that, you want to make sure that at some level you have an acquisition opportunity. And I mean, either that you're acquiring or that you can be acquired. But I
Mhm.
think that your path should be to grow. Otherwise, we've talked about this over and over. Like you're not going to make money with onesie twosies. Like you need more locations than that. You need to be able to collateralize the ones that are just the cash cow, and then the some that aren't always going to be your highest collecting store. But it's a rounded presence throughout community. I would say for all of us as we consider acquisition or being acquired is that we want to make sure our systems are just, they don't require us. You know what I mean? Like what are the things that are just like stable, lockdown? This is how we do it. Standardizing things. I know, Ben, you and I, when we were building out the franchise agreement as Roasters was going to begin to franchise, and Drew, you were going to be a franchisee. Like I think all of that worked in harmony. I think one of the things in that was, hey, what are the standards and how do we have it super standardized? And how do we have it standardized so it doesn't depend on Ben, or it doesn't depend on Drew, or it doesn't depend on Wes, or it doesn't depend on Aaron? Yeah. I mean, like, what are the standards that we set? Because then I think that all that you need at that point then is, if it's an easy system and you have believers, like believers in the system, then the hope would be it doesn't matter who owns this thing. It's just going to travel on. I
Mhm.
mean, like the thing is standard and set enough, but I think a lot of people, a lot of business owners fail at making themselves too kingpin. And then it's like, well, if you remove him, like, is there a Roasters anymore? Is there whatever the brand is anymore? And I think that there's a great book out there called Good to Great, and I think that really thinking through what's going to separate, the two different businesses that have all the same opportunities is the one that thinks about legacy and the one that doesn't make legacy all about the primary person, the CEO. And how can we make this thing something that has legs that can go on beyond us? And I do feel like I feel like all three of us contributed to Roasters being that for BlackRock. And I feel like it's cool to see our legacy going on and see cool guys like Steven being able to carry it forward.
Like you said, man, people don't just come to the business for the coffee. People come for the people. And when the name on the building changes, if the people don't change, then the people who are coming are still going to come. It might take a little bit. I mean, we've all changed jobs. We've all had different leaders in our lives, and new leaders not necessarily as easy to follow as one that you've had for a while. So in lieu of the leader leaving, if the smaller leaders are still in place who are buying into the idea, if you are buying a business, hopefully you're buying a successful business, it's smart to know what made that business successful and to listen to the things that were already going on within the business, because there's a lot of magic in those small businesses that succeed. A lot of small businesses don't. So when you find one that you want to purchase that does, look into why it succeeded and listen to those little secrets they still hold.
I've shared the story before, but I do think it's worth repeating. Of when BlackRock first started taking over, obviously my role within Roasters was high level strategy, making sure we're watching all the numbers, make sure we're thinking through logistics. And, they came in, they started making tweaks. And I remember when I still had visibility into all the financials, me just saying, hey, just be careful. Be careful the things you tweak with, because I know Roasters is performing better than BlackRock is performing. Like I know that. And so it's like, be really careful what dials you start twisting over here, because what drew you to this deal and what BlackRock loved about the deal was how profitable the stores were. Like, and we had worked really hard to drive down those things, whether it's like the matrices of how many people work per shifts, and making sure we're really staying on top of that, making sure, man, speed, like we worked on that like a mother, like of how fast those
Yeah.
went. Then things like energy drinks, like efficiencies on how cheap we were getting energy drinks, and how cheap we were getting fat mix and how we're cheap. We had really banged down our commodities pretty radically. And we had several conversations with BlackRock about, hey, maybe you should just leave this. It's all standalone brand out here in the Tri-City. And there's something magic that's happening here. And I do think that that's something to be considered as you think about wrapping things into your brand is, could there be ancillary standalones that are just have their own magic? That be careful of that, and then just like adopting and assuming your way is better when really let numbers speak to that. If your numbers aren't as good, really ask yourself, could there actually be something that this smaller entity could maybe teach our larger entity by way of how they're managing some of their systems? To your point, Drew, what made this company successful enough for me to want to purchase? And then really asking yourself, let's backtrack that and ask ourselves, let's challenge our other shops. But all the cool things to talk about in Coffee Experts Club.
All the cool things.
Jim, it was great having you for 14 minutes today. I just want you to know, like I cherish those 14 minutes in my life. Hope you guys have a great day. Coffee Experts, we'll see you next week.
See you guys.
Later, guys.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.